if you want to eat healthy, but planning your meals just takes too much time, it's too hard, then this is the episode for you. I'm Make Everything Super Simple Michelle, and you're listening to episode number 49, Elle Gets Coached on Meal Prep. Welcome to the I Cut the Mustard show, where a plant-based diet and small, simple moves make healthy change happen. And where we believe that you already have what it takes to slice through any barrier that stands in your way. Shing! You're sharp enough. You cut the mustard. Welcome to the podcast today. It's going to be a little bit different. I invited my friend Brownell to come and get coached live. She is the host of Power Adulting Podcast. She hosts it with her dad, and it's just a super fun podcast where she goes and interviews a bunch of different adults who have made it in life in some way or another, who have powerful stories to share, and then they chatted up about that and how we can learn from those. So today she's agreed to come on the podcast with me and get coached on meal prep because she's busy and just can't seem to find time to make healthy food. So Alex, just start by telling us a little bit about yourself before we go into the coaching. I just want to hear a little bit about who you are, what you love to do, and a little bit about this podcasting thing you've got going.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me, Michelle. I'm excited to be on I Cut the Mustard here. This is my first time on the opposite end. I'm normally the interviewer, so being the interviewee, coach-y, I don't know what you would say there, but I'm excited. This is fun. But a little bit on my background. I just graduated from university last year in 2019. Thank goodness, because this whole COVID thing would have made university a tad bit wild. So I'm very thankful for when I graduated. I graduated with a bachelor's in sociology and education. And so I just have a passion for learning about people, helping people. And we have a podcast, my dad and I, Dave and Elle, host the Power Adulting Podcast, where we are helping people through this adulting phase. I mean, I graduated college and I was like, goodness, I feel like I still know nothing. I went through all this education and now I'm in the real world and it's like, what do I do now? So we love to chat with people who have gone through this journey a little bit ahead of us and are now on the opposite end and can lend some advice there. So that's been a really fun journey. We launched that beginning of June. But outside of the podcast realm, I work at Trader Joe's right now currently. I love Trader Joe's. Their food is my go-to. We're talking about health here. They're easy, simple foods. That's the way I like to be. But I've been on a health journey myself for over 15 years. My mother passed away from brain cancer 10 days before my 9th birthday. So back in 2004, a long time ago. And that definitely was a struggle for me. I mean, it was a growth journey, and something that really suffered was my health. I turned to food as a coping mechanism from there. One thing I remember is the Christmas after she passed away, we went to my grandma's house, my dad's mom, and she loved to bake and everything. And so me, this child who's struggling with, the reality of life, I just pigged out. Like, I ate everything that I could possibly get my hands on. Full wasn't an option. I was just eating so much. And from what I remember I gained like 10 or 15 pounds in a week, something just absurd. Yeah. And that was just kind of the start to a 15-year-long health journey, trying to figure it out. I've tried every diet in the book, in my opinion. I've done keto, gluten-free, dairy-free, restricting. I've struggled with eating disorders myself, being more on the anorexic side. I wouldn't consider myself anorexic, but just limiting what I was eating just to try and figure out this whole weight thing. I was always overweight and it was a burden on me. And so the answers, there's so many answers that the personalized answers I couldn't really find. And so I've just been on a journey and I feel happy with where I've gotten to, but there's still so much I'd like to learn, and a lot on the nutrition end of it. Like, I've figured out fitness. I go in the climbing gym. I do like bouldering and stuff like that. So I love being active now at this point in my life, but the eating, I love food, but I'm a vegetarian. I eat fish, so pescatarian technically, and it's hard, and I'm lazy. So it's a
Yeah.
little of both.
You just described like every American's journey right there.
Right? Okay, at least I'm not alone. Other people are hopefully in this journey with me because, man,
Yeah, because actually I was just looking at like a pie chart of what Americans eat, and it's like 88% processed foods, meat and dairy. Yeah. And
dang.
then only like 12% plant foods, and of that only half of them are unprocessed. So half of them could be stuff like French fries or something aren't considered processed. I don't know.
I don't know.
Anyways, yeah. So then whenever you're like trying to eat healthier, yeah, like you're saying, all of that.
And
It's
healthier
just
food is
hard.
expensive. It's hard to figure out how to make it and make it taste good because definitely a veggie burger, in my opinion, is much more tasty than a raw salad. But there's obviously somewhere in the middle that we can find to make easy foods taste good too. I'm hoping people can make it work. I just haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah, but I think you've just described a huge issue that we all have, and we just have such pleasure foods
Mm.
around us all the time that are so easy, like you said. So we just want it to be instant, and we want it to like light up our brain like everything else does. So it's kind of harder whenever you go down to the healthier foods. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have to sacrifice the sugary goodness for something more healthy, and it's like, but the sugary goodness is just so good.
I know. Yep. Exactly. Well, awesome. Well, I just want to thank you again for coming on and being willing to be vulnerable and open up and be coached.
It's fun. I'm
So
looking forward to it.
yeah, awesome. Okay, so before we get started, I wanted to ask you what your first impression of coaching is.
I mean, I guess first thing, I've heard of like online coaching and different things like that, but my first inclination for coaching is more like, I think, personal trainer in the gym. I guess that's a different kind of coach, but I've gone through that before, so I have a personal experience. I know kind of what fitness coaching looks like, where they make a plan for you and then they kind of walk you through it. But I think it's the guidance that people need and are looking for, just in a friendly manner. It's not like textbook, it's not Google, it's actually somebody who has some wisdom that can hopefully give me some wisdom and help me do better. That would be awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I love how you describe that. Actually, today I flopped back and forth trying to describe exactly like the super succinct way for so people would understand. And today I'm like, you know what? It's a lot like a personal trainer. So it's funny that you said that. But yes, yeah, because I think it is like a personal trainer, but for your brain, right? Like
Mm.
you said, if you chose to work with me long term, then of course we'd make a plan together and kind of see what your goals are. And then, but basically, yeah, I give you exercises to do. I watch what you do and the exercises, and I give you feedback on that, And like you're saying, it's a customized journey. So instead of floundering around like we've done for 10 or
Mm-hmm.
15 years, I was like, well, my journey's the same too, just trying to read books and let me try this, let me try this, let me try this. So instead
And you
of
get like one part of it right, you're like, I feel a little better here, but there's still 80% that I'm like, not so great on. So like, what's wrong?
yeah. So instead of going through all of that mess, you just can get someone to tell you, why don't you do X, Y, Z in this order? So you don't have to spend as much time and energy on it. But I think the major, or one of the differences, of course, is that it's with your brain, right?
Mm.
And so I can't really like watch you work out. Like I can't just watch your thoughts and tell you like, this is what you should do differently, because obviously I can't see those. So it requires a lot more openness on
Mm.
your side. And then
And I'm guessing accountability as well, like being able to be accountable back to you to report back, like, okay, you told me X, Y, and Z. X and Y were easy, but Z was just a hard one. How can I do better there, kind of thing?
Yeah. And I also, yeah, absolutely. So the accountability is huge for people too, because then you actually you start doing it when someone's watching you.
It's easy when
Which is
nobody's
good.
watching to just, sneak a few cookies and nobody'll know, but
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So one of the other things though I say too is that I don't tell you what to do. I like to make that clear about my style. I can't stand it when people just tell me what to do, even when I have coaches of my own, because I have such a rebellious nature. So I
Mm.
just love to ask questions and walk you through the process so that like you can find the answer for yourself, because you get so many more ahas that way. You're more dedicated to it yourself and it actually happens. Whereas if I was like, oh, eat this, this, and this, and I gave you the exact plan, you'd be like, why am I even doing this? And I don't really want to. And
I get it. I love that. That sounds awesome. So you're going to help me help myself.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Cool.
Okay,
Cool.
cool.
I'm ready for this.
All right. Yeah. And we're going to focus on the brain too, because I think with any change, I mean, the only reason we have any results is because we have a brain that like makes it happen. So the more that we focus on our brain and our thoughts, then that's what's keeping us stuck. It's not that you can't make food, right? It's not that you can't eat whatever is in front of you. It's like, I don't want to, or it's too hard, or it's all that.
Or it's
that
making me
dialogue.
feel poop. So I'm going to try and do better because my brain is telling me one thing and I need to do the other thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. So now that we've kind of got that all settled, what do you stress about? What's keeping you stuck?
I'm thinking nutrition and the ease in which you can come up with nutritious foods, because I feel like I'm on such a go all the time that for me, eating is so stressful. Why do I want to spend, in my brain, this is how I justify what I do, why do I want to spend 45 minutes, an hour cooking this beautiful, delicious meal just to eat it in 5 minutes, and then I have another half hour of cleanup from all this stuff when I don't have that kind of time. I just need to eat and sustain my body and hopefully put stuff in my body that's decent and then move on with my day and move on to the next meal instead of spending so much of my day trying to make this beautiful meal that I'm not good at cooking to begin with. So it's just kind of a guessing game. And then I'm like, I could have just eaten something simple, but that's kind of where I'm at. It's so stressful for me trying to figure out what to eat, when to eat, and do it in minimal effort, minimal time.
So far, what I'm hearing you say is some of the things we talked about a minute ago, but just that you're wanting to have it quick and you're always go, go, go. It's stressful and maybe a little frustrating as well that you have to spend 45 minutes or longer, and then you have to clean up afterwards, whenever you really don't sit down for that long, and actually like eating the food doesn't take very long, right?
Exactly. I've resulted in just Trader Joe's. Love Trader Joe's. I will shout out Trader Joe's all the time because love it. But I love Trader Joe's frozen food. Not all the bad frozen food, just stuff that's easy for me to throw in the microwave for a few minutes and it's cooked and ready. They have this like vegetarian Penang curry that's just delicious. I don't know how much nutritional value is in there at all, but it's delicious. It's got rice, it's got veggies and curry sauce, and I'm like 5 minutes in the microwave. Cool beans, I'm ready to go. So those like easy things is where I'm at now, but I definitely realize that I can probably spend less money and eat better by coming up with a system to make me less stressed and maybe eat more whole foods or foods that actually have more nutritional value in them.
Okay, awesome. You actually just answered my next question, which was gonna be, or you can expand on it for us. But my question was gonna be, why is it a problem? Because I feel like sometimes we do stuff and we think, oh, I should be doing this or I should be doing that, but it's not actually a problem. We just think it's a problem. Does that make sense? So why is it a problem for you? Why are you wanting something different?
I guess I've really noticed like brain fog, fatigue, and I know that I'm not doing too much wrong in the rest of my life, but the one big thing that I feel like I could improve on is what I'm putting in my body, and I feel like I have a lot of control over that, but it's the laziness and the accessibility to the knowledge of how to even put it into practice. How can I change my eating habits? How can I change my nutrition so that I'm less stressed about it? Because right now I am trying to do the low stress route by buying already prepped salads and things like that I'm like, okay, it has fair nutritional value, but I'm spending a boatload in money, which is stressful. And I know that it's not necessarily what my body needs altogether. I think I'm like, oh, I need protein. Okay, so I'll eat a frozen cod fillet that I'll throw in the air fryer. Okay, there's some protein there. But it's not well-rounded at all. And I definitely realized that, but I've never had any guidance because I lost my mom at a young age to cook at all. Cooking is not something that is in my wheelhouse, and that's something that I need some coaching on. I need somebody who's been there and gone through it and can help enlighten me onto how to make this different.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Well, we can definitely get to some tips in a moment. But first, I like to just clear up what's happening in your brain. So I said I would watch it, right? I'm watching what you're doing, what you're thinking. So far you said that you're stressed out. It just feels like too much, and you're just going for the easy things. You don't know how to cook, but you want to change because there's brain fog and other things that you feel like, fatigue and brain fog. You just feel like, yeah, this is sort of healthy, but if I made a couple changes, then I could be performing at a better level.
Absolutely. Yes. You hit it
Yeah.
spot on.
Okay. So before we even go into the tips, though, we want you to be motivated to actually want to. Okay. Because one of my favorite things to say is don't do anything you don't want to do. Because I think a lot of times, especially with diet and exercise and things, we're like, oh, I should do this. So then you keep shoving yourself into it, like trying to make yourself do it, but you don't want to. And then there's resentment on top of whatever was causing you not to want to in the first place.
So interesting you say this, because I actually went to the doctor this last week and found out that I deal with acid reflux, but not in the same way. I thought acid reflux was just like that burning sensation in your throat, like ouch, acid, like that's not good. But I actually I have like this lump in the back of my throat, and I was concerned it was way more than it was, and thankfully I got it taken care of, and it's not. And he explained that different foods that I was eating, like more acidic foods, chocolate, which I love chocolate. Apparently I can't have chocolate anymore, or minimal chocolate, caffeine, and different things that are big parts of my current diet because I'm suffering from fatigue and different things. So I pound caffeine to try and get through the day, and all these different things that I do to try and curb the symptoms have to do with the nutrition overall. So it's one of those things that, yeah, you're right, I have to want to do it, but I also, now that I have come to this realization that, oh, there are bigger things happening, and maybe my diet is playing a bigger role than I originally thought. I don't know how to motivate myself other than doctor told me that the things I'm doing are wrong. Let's figure out how to change these.
Yeah. So I think, well, if you feel motivated at all by that, that's actually a big deal, because a lot of times doctors tell us stuff and we're still like, man, it's not worth it, right?
Yeah, right.
So what I guess the way that I like to explain it too is that if you've been listening to my podcast a million times, you've heard me say this 1,000 times, but you haven't, so I'm going to go through it again. But basically, you've got just your circumstance, whatever's happening in your world, and then your thoughts about that. And then your feelings come from those thoughts that you're having. And then we act on our feelings, and that's how we get our results. So yeah, whenever you're thinking about this, if you're thinking, hey, I want to get healthy, or I want to avoid this thing, whatever feeling is happening there, then it's motivating your action and results. So if you can look back, it's basically like trying to observe and identify what those thoughts you are having that are keeping you stuck. And once you see what they are, you can question them, you can turn them around, and that's how you stay motivated. It's not like rah, rah, rah. It's just like honestly seeing, what beliefs aren't serving me and flipping them around and changing them so that it just becomes a natural thing for you.
I love that. I've never thought about it that way. I mean, I think I've always understood that kind of your thoughts translate into your actions, but I really like the way you broke that down into it's more than just your thoughts to your results. It changes the way you're feeling about the situation, which then motivates what you're going to do and where you're going to end up, which is really cool. I love that.
Yeah, because absolutely. And we could be doing all the same actions, right? Like I could be doing the same things you're doing, but if I'm coming into it with like stress and resentment, it's going to show up and give me a different result than if you're like, I love this or whatever it is, and having fun or whatever. So you said that you were stressed out. So tell me some dialogue that goes on in your head whenever you're getting ready to make some food.
I guess the first thing that will normally come into my head is, oh, I'm starving. Because I go from like, I'm fine, to I'm really hungry, like real fast. It's that blood. I'm pretty sure it has to do with blood sugar. I'm no nutritionist or expert, but from my understanding, it has to
Yeah.
do with blood sugar dropping and not being stable enough. And that probably has to do with the sugar that I do consume just being burnt up really quick and then disappears. That's going to be my total arbitrary guess there.
Yeah,
But
yeah. You're
I
spot
go
on.
in, yeah. I go in and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry. What can I eat first? And so I think that's the first thing that I think of is like the quickness of it. How
Mhm.
fast can I get something to eat? And then from there, because I'm already famished in my brain, I mean, not compared to people of other countries who deal with other things, but for me, I'm famished in my own brain. And so I just reach for whether that's a string cheese or an apple or something to throw in the microwave. It's like that quickness. And the thought that goes in my head is, oh, I could make potatoes. Like, say I have raw potatoes and I'm like, oh, I could cook up some potatoes. And then I'm like, that's too hard. That's going to take too long. That's
Mhm.
probably the dialogue that goes through my head first, is that like quickness. I could prepare a little more and not eat right when I figure out that I am starving, have more of a plan. I think that's a great idea, but I'm
Yeah.
not necessarily that much of a planner in the sense of food yet. So having something that's accessible would be probably my first thought. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wanted to hear all that you just told
Okay.
me. All the stuff like what's going on in your brain, whatever you're going there. So you said number one, you're kind of just not really thinking about it all until it's emergency time, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
starving right
Uh-huh.
now. I need something quick. What can I eat first is what you said. And well, I could make potatoes, but that's too hard. This is going to take too long. So tell me, we're just going to break it down. Whenever you think you've got your potato, you see the potatoes, we're going to say that's your circumstance. You see the potatoes, you think, oh no, that's too hard. What are you feeling there?
I'm feeling that the idea of potatoes sounds great, but I may have frozen potatoes that would be cooked faster, or
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to pause you for a second because I didn't give you very good instruction.
okay.
So whenever we are a feeling is just going to be a one word thing. So it's your emotion. A lot of times we say,
Mm,
whenever we're talking, we use feelings, but we're really talking about our thoughts. But
okay.
so,
Okay.
so what emotion are you feeling? Like, man, this is too hard.
I'd say like frustration or the stress there, either
Yeah,
stress or frustration.
frustration or stress. Okay, I'm gonna write down frustration. So then, yeah, then how do you act when you're feeling frustrated in that situation?
That I'm just going to bail on that idea and find something that is faster and doesn't cause me that frustrating feeling, even
Okay.
if it's not as satisfying as the potatoes would have been.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Going for the quick thing, find something else, and really avoiding that, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, because I end up, this is a thing, this happens where I'll buy potatoes at work. I'm like, oh, potatoes will be great one day. And then they sit there for months and then they go in the trash because they've overgrown or whatever and I can't use them. And I'm like, oh, that's such a waste. But I was so lazy and unprepared that I did not have them accessible, or it wasn't accessible for me to be able to cook them because I was so hungry every time that I would only go for the faster food and not the more nutrient dense but food that had kind of steps to be able to cook it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now your result then from that is because you're bailing, because you're finding something else, because you're avoiding, then it's becoming harder and harder, right?
Yes.
And so it's
Yes.
kind of this cycle. So what I like to do now is just to question that thought. Like, is it really too hard?
No. No, not. But in the moment my brain goes to that fight or flight, I'm just going to run away and find something else.
Right. Yeah, because of that emotional response that it feels
Yes.
uncomfortable and
Mm-hmm.
you fly away. So what you mentioned stress before too. So a lot of times when we're like, oh, I'm too busy, it's too hard, it's really because there's something else going on, right? There's another reason why we don't want to do it. And those are just some excuses, right? So we could go through I don't have time, but we could really see that you have time. But what are you running away from?
Learning a new skill. I guess I'm just a newbie in the whole cooking area. I know what I know, but it never is as satisfying as I want it to be. So then I'm like, is it even worth it to invest this time and energy into it if I'm not feeling satisfied at the end? But then the problem is one day I'll have to be a mother, and I will be a mother, and I will have to cook at some point in time. So there's a one point in my life I'm going to have to pick it up and deal with it head on. I just have not jumped into that
No,
yet.
absolutely. And I love honestly, I like breaking it down too, because it makes sense. Like, of course, like you're thinking it's too hard. We all have that in some area of our lives. It's too hard. I don't have time. Those are like our two common right excuses, right?
Yeah.
Because there's something, it just feels too big. I don't want to think about it. So you kind of go into avoidance. And it makes sense though, based on what you're thinking. So let me first ask you, what if I had like a magic wand and I could just zap you?
Okay.
How would you and make whatever emotions and thoughts come true, right? So how would you want to be feeling about whenever you go get your food, or like what experience do you really want to be having instead?
I guess I'd love to have like a creative motivation. I feel like it's something right now where I go into a kitchen and it's more dread. Whereas I'd love to go in and be like, oh, I have these few items available to me. Let's be creative. What can I create with it? But at this point, I have not gotten there yet. But that would be a cool feeling.
Yeah. Okay. So creativity. I love that. So it also sounds like fun or excitement too. Yeah.
Yes. Not negative.
Right. Okay. So you said, I'm just going to pick on you a little bit. No. So you said that you enjoy exercise and movement at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you're getting ready to go to the gym, as you go to the gym, what's your feeling when you're getting ready to go exercise?
Let's take climbing, for example, because that's something that like I do enjoy. I do get that feeling of like excitement of a challenge because I like small little challenges. That's something that why I really like climbing or bouldering, is because they're short little challenges that I feel like I can accomplish. Whereas when I walk into a kitchen, it doesn't feel like a short little challenge. It feels like a huge challenge where I don't even know where to take the first bite to like work towards the result. Whereas I can go into a climbing gym, and for me, I'm like, oh, I just have to get from point A to point B, and then I've accomplished my challenge. And so it doesn't feel stressful because I can see the finish line. Whereas with cooking and nutrition, the creativity isn't something that comes natural to me. So it feels more like a chore than a release of energy kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's back up just a little bit.
Oh, backing up.
Just tell me, no, this is all very good because I think you're seeing it, but
yes.
I want to just get a little more specific about what you're thinking specifically whenever you go to climb. Because you said, I love challenges. That was one thing you think.
I guess I think this is my like me time. Like just time to go turn off my brain and focus on something other than the bigger issues in my everyday life. It's kind of a time to turn off, time to just go and exist rather than worrying about everything else that's going on. And I think that's something for cooking that it's not as much of a distraction. It's more of a stressor than a stress-free environment for me. So I'm thinking, oh, this is my time to be stress-free when I go into a climbing gym.
Okay, yeah. So this is my me time. This is my stress-free time. And like, I can go, you said something like, I can go from A to B.
And then be done with my challenge. And if I'm done for that day, then cool. If I want to keep going, then that's an option too.
Yeah, but yeah, like you see the beginning, you see the end, I
Mm-hmm.
can be done. Okay, so I like to ask that because sometimes you can take those thoughts directly and just shove them on your new thing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
other times it takes a little bit of tweaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let's say this cooking thing, it is a challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And every meal is just a little challenge. And
Correct.
you could go from A to B and be done.
Maybe.
Just think about those potatoes. I just chop them and I stick them in there like it's A to B, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Is that true? Okay. So how could cooking be similar to that?
I guess that it's a solo challenge, whereas like climbing and cooking are both you yourself. It's not a team effort. It's you going in and accomplishing whatever challenge there is. Um, if I had recipes, then it would be similar in the sense that climbing has a path for you, or bouldering has a path in front of you set for you that you have to follow to get to the end, whereas a recipe also has a path for you to follow and get to the end.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got recipes are the path. You got the challenge. It's a solo challenge. Okay. So do you think you would? So whenever you're done with your challenge, how does that make you feel?
Accomplished.
Right.
Yes.
So have you ever made a meal and then afterwards felt accomplished?
Personally, no, but my fiance definitely feels accomplished after he cooks, because he'll cook for myself and our neighbors, and he feels a sense of accomplishment after he has created a meal to provide to people. So I see it. Have I
Yeah.
felt it? Not necessarily, but I see the connection for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So okay. So I've just got a few questions left
Yes, no,
and
keep going.
then a tip. Okay. So back to only doing it because you want to do it. Um, so here are your options, I feel like. Number one is figure out how to stress less and enjoy cooking in the same way that you enjoy rock climbing.
Okay.
Okay. And then it becomes creative and fun. It's a challenge. You get to feel accomplished. The other option is get someone else to do it for you.
That's a great except that it costs money to have other people cook for you, which is a stressor in itself, because like all those meal services like HelloFresh and everything, they sound great until you look at the price tag and you're like, can I actually afford this? But I also haven't gone in and budgeted how much I spend on food. So there's a likelihood that it might be cheaper than I'm expecting it to be.
Yeah,
So
I bet
that's a
you
great
spend a
option.
lot more. Everybody, if whatever you think you spend, if you double that number, that's probably what you really spend.
Hmm.
That's what I find is true for
Okay.
everyone.
You're probably totally right, but you like to think like, oh, I barely eat anything, but it really does add up quite fast.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess what I want to offer you is that there is a solution. So whether it's finding that meal service like you just mentioned, or you talked about how your fiance loves to cook, like maybe he just cooks all the time. Maybe even as a mom, maybe you're not the one that cooks. Maybe he does it because he likes it, and you go do something else that you like, and then you're both happy with that, right?
That's true. I wonder, have you found that planning ahead, in the sense that spending a day or a few hours prepping everything ahead of time helps? And if so, how can you, because you obviously, I don't know, do you make whole meals 5 days ahead of time, or do you just make different elements ahead of time so that you can combine them into a meal when you're ready
Yeah.
to eat? Because I think that's something that could be beneficial, but I just don't even know where to even begin, because I feel like meals are so complex. And if you cook 5 things and then come Wednesday and you're like, I have potatoes and that's all left, or whatever that may be,
Yeah,
how do
yeah.
you make those kinds of decisions a week ahead of time?
Yeah, actually, I have a whole process. I think I tell you, I have a whole course about this, but I can totally, yeah. So we'll go through the process. Let me ask you a couple questions first, and then
Love it.
and then I'll tell you all my process. Okay, number one, this is what I like to ask myself when I want to do something. The first question is, why might I want to do this? Why might you want to cook or learn how to cook?
For health, for freedom, I guess. I feel like cooking brings a sense of freedom when you can provide for yourself exactly what you are craving. I think that's another uh, thing that's holding me back is that creativity that we were discussing, the dream for creativity, that it's just in your brain, you're like, okay, something of this some sort sounds great, but how do you actually bring it to life? I think having those skills or developing those skills could bring a sense of freedom, because if you
Yeah.
can actually create that, then you don't have to rely on another restaurant or somebody else to be able to provide it
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, just freedom and control over your own life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how else would it give you freedom?
I mean, financially, if you're able to
Yeah.
use more whole foods that are cheaper instead of buying the more expensive processed foods, it's providing a sense of financial freedom there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned health as well. How's it
Mm.
freedom there?
Uh, I think health freedom would come when you're able to regulate what you're eating and have control over that. Then it will help your health goals actually be successful, instead of wondering why you're not losing weight or you're not feeling less fatigue or less brain fog because you're having cheat meals and everything every single day. You obviously can't get to your end goal, but if you can find a system where eating is no longer the stress, then overall it's going to bring a sense of freedom to your health journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So like you're saying, if you could get rid of that brain fog, that would
Mm-hmm.
be very freeing and have more energy. What kind of
Man,
freedom would that be, right?
that would, yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. So sorry, I was asking you. So my second question that I asked you, which I was sort of already doing, is why is that important? So you kind of come up with like, why might I want to? Well, it could be for my health, it's for freedom. Then we dive a little deeper. Why is that important? Which we did already, that, it's important for your health so that you can feel freedom. But yeah, why else is your health important for you?
Because I mean longevity, so that you can be around longer. So I wonder if it's just me or if other people feel this way, but in the back of your head you're like, am I going to be that person that, like my mom, just randomly gets diagnosed with cancer and then I've got 3 months to live? I mean, people who've gone through that kind of loss really face that reality, or at least I've faced in that reality my
Yeah.
whole life. But being able to take control of nutrition could help you be able to, instead of worrying about that so much, you have the control on what's going into your body, so you can be less fearful of those extra thoughts like eating tons of sugar and all this kinds of things that go through your head, and you're like, oh, maybe I'm going to be next because of my eating habits. It's going to help you be able to live the life that you're looking to live.
Yeah, yeah. So it sounds like I love all of this. I'm just going to bring it back a little bit because it sounds like what's happening in your life right now is pretty hard,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So a lot of times the thing that we think we're avoiding is actually what we're creating, right?
Hmm.
Like those potatoes, it's too hard to cook them. But if you look back at all the things there's other things right now that are really hard because you're not cooking the potatoes, right?
I guess, yeah, I heard some quote, and it was from one of our podcasts. It was my friend Alex, who was on there talking about stoicism, and he brought up this quote that he said, it's like, easy choices now equals hard life, hard choices now equals easy life. And it's interesting that you say that exact thing, because my potato example is literally a straight example that it was too hard for me to make potatoes, and that made my life more difficult because I didn't make the hard choice to make the potatoes. So my life ended up getting harder. Whereas if I would have gone ahead and made those potatoes or food in general, then my life can get easier in the long term because I'm mastering these skills instead of running away from them.
Yeah. Yeah. And another way I like to look at the same thing is that it's like, it's hard either way.
Okay.
Like it's hard, yeah, because it's hard either way. It's hard to make it. It's hard to eat healthy and be healthy, but it's also hard to have fatigue and brain fog and all the junk that comes with being unhealthy. So then you just get to decide which hard do I want?
The lesser of two evils, right?
Yeah.
Which do I want it hard now? Do I want it hard later? It's going to be hard regardless, but we just got to do it.
Which one do I want? Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So going back to my questions. The first one was, why is that important? Or excuse me, why do you want to do it? Why is that important? And then the third one is just, how can I make this fun?
I think the question to how can you make this fun is a wonderful question, because that would change my life if I could figure out how to make cooking fun. I'm a person who really likes structure. And I really like to have a plan. And when I don't have a plan or structure, life feels really chaotic. And so the fun gets sucked out of it because the stress kind of comes in and overtakes the place where fun could potentially be. This is extra hard work, but coming up with some sort of a weekly or monthly plan to be able to take the stress off of cooking and have a plan going into it. For me, the struggle there is then, am I forced to then eat whatever I decided a month ago today? What if I don't want chorizo and potatoes? What if I want something else? Like, is there a way to make a plan but also be adaptable in the moment?
Yes, I actually have lots of good news for you.
I love good news.
I really thank you so much for walking through all of this though, because it helped me see so much about your personality. What are you really struggling with? What are some of the root things? And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it really helped you realize why it's important. And I don't know, do you feel like your motivation level has changed since when we started talking and now?
I do. And I really liked it's going to be hard either way. That's like the reality check that I kind of needed, because sometimes in the moment you're worried about, oh, I don't have time now, but realistically you won't have time later if you don't address it now, kind of thing. And so realizing that it's going to be hard either way, just suck it up and do it, was kind of the kick in the butt that I needed, because I just needed that reality check.
Yeah, I'm so glad. I love what you said though. If I don't have time now, I'm not going to have time later. That was really insightful too. Okay, so I'm going to run you through. I'll just have to give you afterwards. I have a whole podcast about this, or 3 of them, and I have the course,
I will listen to them. So just go do a rundown.
Yeah, but I'll do a brief. Brief for you. So the way that, because I'm very similar to you, I love just having a plan and but I love having versatility with it.
That's a good word, versatility. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, because I'm like you. What if it's hot out and now I don't want to eat chili, I want to eat salad instead, right? So I have three things. This is our magic number today. First is I definitely plan ahead. So I plan my whole week. So that's number 1, which we can go into a little more. Number 2 is that I keep it simple. And then number 3 would just be eliminating repetitive tasks. So the cool thing.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because what you're describing is, I went and added it up, actually, what you were describing earlier. Okay. Number 1, you're spending way more time than you think, even whenever you're doing it the quick route, because you're spending a ton of time worrying about what you're going to eat. And avoiding worrying about it. And then you're spending tons of time rummaging around trying to find something. Then you finally make it, right? And you're pulling everything out. You're putting the cutting board together. Like you said, you're cleaning up afterwards. So every time, if you do that every day, every meal, that really adds up. And it adds up to be about 20 hours a week. Yeah, it's a lot. That's a part-time job. Yeah. So the cool thing is, though, whenever you batch it, when you plan ahead and you batch it like that by simplifying and eliminating the tasks, you can actually cut out, I did the math, 8 hours. You could be saving 8 hours. I'm about to save you 8 hours. So you definitely have time. Okay. So here's the process. So what I do is I create a meal for the week. I just pick like 4 main dishes and 4 raw dishes, like a soup or a veggie burger or whatever. And then I pick like 4 salads, and the salads can be like wraps or they could be salads, wraps, or anything that's raw. And I try to pick things that are simple and that I can mix and match. So, for example, I'll have in my salads column, I'll have like a Greek salad, and I'll have a bean salad, or, like a Mexican bean salad. I'll have just like a greens and so anyways. And then I'll make like I'll just bake a bunch of potatoes all at one time, or I'll make a bunch of rice, And so then whenever I go to the refrigerator, I've got all the pieces in there of every meal that I wanted to make. So I do it all at one time. It just takes me about 2 hours to chop everything up. Or you could buy frozen pre-chopped stuff if you don't want to spend 2 hours. And that's for my family of 5 also. So it should take you less time than me.
For a single person, yes. Okay, yeah, I hope so.
But it does take practice. So it might take 2 hours the first time, which is totally fine. Then I just chop it all up. I put all the pieces in there. And then whenever I want to eat, I just go to the fridge and I say, what do I want to have? And I scoop up a bowl. I put it in the microwave. So then I could have a baked potato with my bean salad on, or I could have a rice bowl with my green salad and my bean salad. Or I like to do roasted vegetables. So again, you could have your rice bowl with roasted vegetables, and maybe you did put some sweet potatoes. You put some sweet potatoes or some beans on top or whatever. So I just have a couple basic things that I make, but because I can make slightly different salads every time, because I can mix and match, then I just get to choose whatever I want to make, and it's kind of buildable. And that's in brief, that's how I do my life.
And is every week different then? And how do you make those decisions to make it different? Do you have to like research, or do you just have favorites in mind where you're like, maybe I'll switch every other week and that kind of thing?
Yeah, at this point I just kind of have some favorites that I've found, but one thing that I did that I was also going to suggest to you is whenever I first started learning how to really cook and figure out which flavors go well together, I just got a cookbook that I liked that had a lot of recipes that looked good. So I just started to make everything from that cookbook, basically. So if I were you, I would get a cookbook. I would go through and I'd pick like 4 main dishes, 4 salad looking things that look good. I write it all down, and then I make those things. So one option is to do it all at one time and just throw all the pieces in the fridge. Or another option is to like split it up and just make 2 main dishes, 2 salads one day. And then like 3 days later, you make 2 main dishes, 2 salads. That's the general idea.
I think that's genius. I think people need to be taught this in school, because this is a scary thing. I don't know why. Where'd home ec go? I don't understand. I needed home ec in high school, but I never had that kind of a class, because, man, this is scary stuff.
Yeah. But the good news is, you could do it my way. You can go all in and do it all my way. Or you can just, grab a cookbook and say, 2 days a week, I'm just going to cook a bunch of stuff. Because even then, dragging it all out, washing it all at the same time, chopping it all at the same time, doing that all at the same time, that's just going to save you a lot of time. You're going to not have stress anymore because you'll go to the fridge, there'll be stuff
and it'll be there.
Yeah.
Yes, instead of the decision, you're right. The worrying about what I'm going to eat and when I'm going to eat it and how I'm going to make it, that probably takes up more time than actually cooking it. And that is why I'm so fearful of it, because I have to make these executive decisions and I'm not prepared for that.
Yeah, and it's a lot of decision. Yeah, a lot of decision fatigue too when you could sit down. It takes me 15 minutes to plan my whole week. Write everything down on my list. I go to the grocery store one time,
That is genius. I love this. This is what I needed. This was the the coaching result I was looking for. You have helped
right.
enlighten me, which is perfect.
I made you wait till the end, though.
Hey, but
So
that's
you
it.
would be ready for it.
I needed to be educated beforehand. You're right. Exactly. We needed to dig into my brain before you could just give me all the answers.
That's right. Exactly. And I think what you'll also find too, for one more thing before we leave, going back to the blood sugar thing. It really is what you're eating, and it's perpetuating itself, like as you eat those foods, you crave those foods, and they're like short-lived, like you're saying, and it perpetuates itself, and then it doesn't taste good, and then all of that. But once you, especially if you do some kind of food prep like this, and you have it where you're mostly eating that good stuff all the time, you'll start to love vegetables more and fresh ones, and you'll start to crave those things less. And it's not 100% because there's some mindset stuff still going on, but it'll be a lot easier too.
Just got to jump off and start with a plan, right?
That's right. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been super fun. And
this has been awesome. Yes, I love it.
Before we end today, though, I wanted to ask you, what you loved about our session, and maybe how has your perception about coaching changed?
I really liked how you were digging in with questions. I thought that the question probing was really nice, and that you were looking for a specific answer. Like when I was talking about my feelings and I was actually talking about my thoughts, you were able to assess that I was talking about my thoughts and not my feelings, and help redirect me to answer with feelings. And I thought that was something that I guess we're so used to going on tangents and just talking about what we believe, that you coming in as an outside person and really using your wisdom to help guide me to my own answers was exactly what I needed. And that it's less scary than people make it out to be. You think coach, you're like, oh, I'm going to get lectured, when really it's, no, I'm just going to help you find the answers that you're already looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Awesome. So what are some of the insights that you got?
So I really liked your setting up the issues with circumstance, thoughts, feelings, actions, results, that everything kind of is a tier into the next one, and that they're all kind of separate, but they play into each other. So I even thought about, if I'm thinking negatively about work, that's going to influence my actions at work. And so I guess I knew it, but breaking it down into that simple structure really helped me. And the stress less and enjoy more. I think that's a big thing that's been hitting home for me lately, is that what we're doing in our lives should bring joy, should bring enjoyment, should bring happiness, instead of all this worry and stress. Because what's a life that you're just stressing about constantly? That's not a good life to be living. Like, this should all be enjoyable stuff, and there are ways to make it easier. Like you said, planning ahead and coming up with a plan and having everything in front of me, eliminating those decisions. I think those are all huge, huge things that I need to start implementing. Do you have like a day, like, is it like Sundays that you go in and you're like, we're going to make a plan for the next week? Or is it just whenever you have time?
Yeah, I'm pretty scheduled, so I usually try to keep it the same day each week, and then I'll plan and go shopping one day, and then I'll do my prep the next day.
Okay. I think that's a great idea. I'm going to try. We're going to start small and build from there. I might do the 2 days a week. I think that's the more feasible to start, and then as I get better, be able to go bigger, because making 4 days worth of food sounds like, or 5 days worth of food sounds like a lot of energy that I'm not used to doing yet, but we'll get there, right?
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed having you on the podcast.
Yes, this was amazing. We look forward to being able to talk with you further. I want to keep learning about, you have just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to nutrition and this whole health thing. I mean, I'm just starting on the journey, and I need all the help I can get, because man, this is a struggle area for me, for sure.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that humility there. That's very kind of you to say that about me. Yeah, and so Power Adulting Podcast, which I listen to your interviews and I really love them. I think you do a great job. And
thank you.
I'm going to be on there with you soon, here in the next little bit.
Well, awesome, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me today and enlightening me to all this crazy food stuff because I need it. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's been a blast. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you got a greater sense of what coaching is like and were able to get some great tips about cooking and meal prep. If you want to check out Elle's podcast, she's again at Power Adulting Podcast. I'll put that link in the show notes. And if you're interested in checking out my kitchen course as well, you can go to icutthemustard.com/messy kitchen. I'll put the link down there for you as well. Happy cooking and have a fabulous day.